Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Loudguns, and today we're going to start a little mini-series, how much of a grind is Star Citizen. So I'm going to assume that maybe you're looking at a starter package, sort of one of the £40–45 ones, an Aurora or a Mustang, and you're just curious, how long will it take me realistically to get to some of the more advanced ships? How long will it take before I get sort of a basic footing in terms of sort of a decent little solo fleet for an individual player? So before we get started, just a note to say I'll try and do this all from a solo perspective, but Star Citizen is a game best experienced in a group. So if you're looking for people to play with, our link to our Discord is just in the video description down below. Feel free to just pop in and say hello, and we'll set you up with some people to fly with. Looking ahead to Fleet Week, there's a free fly event, and what I've been talking about with some of the members of our community is putting on sort of a one-on-one training sort of thing, so we can set you up with a buddy to help you out in the early stage of the game, get you on voice comms and chatting with each other, just somebody to help you through the beginning. Down in the video description, I've also included my referral code. If you are considering buying a starter package, it's really a good idea to use somebody's referral code. It doesn't have to be mine. Obviously, I'll be happy if you do choose to use mine. But just for you, make sure that you use one because it gets you some extra starting cash, which is quite useful in the very beginning. As we'll see through this series, it's actually making your first bit of cash, which is the hardest. Once you get into the flow of it, then the money starts rolling in. And I guess the final point before we go on to the rest of the video, just if you do find this sort of content useful, if you want to keep up with the next episodes in this series or any of my future content, if you think I've done a good job by the end of it, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. Okay. So this is the starter fleet that I've picked out. So this is what I'm going to work towards in this series. I'm starting out sort of going from the right hand side, starting out with my consolidated Outland Mustang Alpha. So that's one of the lowest price starter ships available with a game package. So you can choose that or the Aurora. I chose the Mustang because actually at the time that I did it, there was a referral bonus on the go, and I got a free Aurora as well. So I thought, why not have a Mustang rather than two Auroras? The Mustang is a bit more combat oriented. It's got a few more weapon hardpoints. The Aurora benefits from having a bed. So beds ultimately will allow you to log out where you are in the universe and log back in to that bed on your ship. So that's the advantage for the Aurora, really. I wouldn't worry too much about it, to be honest. Pick whichever you think looks coolest, because all being well, you won't be in it for very long. So then working our way up, sort of from the right-hand side to the left, the next ship we're going to go for is an Arrow, so that's going to give us a single-seat fighter, so a decent combat ship. Then we're going to try and use that to buy a Prospector, so a single-seat mining ship. We're going to need the Freelancer Max, that's the sort of yellow-orangey one. That's a decent cargo vessel. And then finally I thought we'd go for a Constellation Andromeda, so this is much more a multi-crew ship. This is just if you find yourself getting into Star Citizen and you want to buy a bigger vessel to maybe have some fun with your mates in. So that's got sort of capacity for you as the pilot, a couple of turret gunners, and it's also got a little snubcraft on it, which comes off so you can have your own sort of dedicated fighter. So those ships should give you the room to basically play all of the gameplay loops that are in at the moment, and also have that multi-crew ship in reserve for if you've got some friends around that you will go and do some stuff with. Obviously, you would probably find yourself then going out and using these ships to buy more ships, because that's most of the game at the moment. We don't have the planned MMO elements that are in, which I really look forward to. But these ships would provide you with a really good footing to go out and make some more cash and buy any ships that you think are awesome. Because at this time in the sort of alpha stage of the game, I think that's one of the best things you can do. Really, sort of get out there, make some cash, work out sort of how the different game loops work, and then use it to buy and test all the different ships that you can. Find what really works for you, so that when we get to a later stage of development, you won't sort of have to worry about, well, what ship do I buy? What ship will I really like? You'll know which your favorite are, and which you can focus on. So in this first episode, I'm going to look at progressing from my starter ship up to my arrow. So when we're looking to answer the question, how much of a grind is Star Citizen? I have to be honest, it's quite a grind. So with that in mind, I'm speeding this footage up to 9 times speed, just to keep these videos a reasonable amount of time. Now, one thing I do really want to do is I'm going to show it warts and all. So I've left the timer running if I've crashed, if I've got a bug where I wasn't able to access one of the ships that I was using, if I had to quit out. So it's basically all the time that I'm in the game, that clock in the bottom right-hand corner is going to be running. So I've started out at Lorville. For a couple of reasons. I think sort of the Hurston system is the easiest to get started in. It's nice and close to Crusader, which is the other system we might want to get to. Certainly, sort of New Babbage is quite far away from everything else. I'm also going to leave in mistakes that I made. So, I bought a couple of guns to go onto my Mustang because for the first bit I thought some improved attritions would make me quicker. But that turned out to be a mistake. That was a bit of a waste of cash. But I think it's worth basically showing an honest picture. You're going to make some mistakes. So why should I be any different, really? Given that this is all going at super speed, one thing I would just highlight: if you're looking for a solid guide on like how to do some of this stuff, check out my Getting Started in Star Citizen guide series. It's a lot slower. I talk you through sort of all the aspects like how to fly your ship, some of the different sort of intros to things like mining and all that sort of stuff. One thing I will highlight though, a mistake I did not make, is to basically, as soon as you get off the planet, make sure you call the nearest space station. So in this case, it's Everest Harbour. Make sure you request landing permission once you've gotten out of that city for the first time, because as soon as you request landing permission, that's what resets your spawn point. So you won't spawn at the city, Lorville, anymore. You'll spawn at Everest Harbour, which will just save you an awful lot of time if something goes wrong. So to start with, I'm looking at the mercenary missions. I'm just trying to make a bit of cash to get myself going. What I really wanted was halt illegal surveillance, but there weren't any available, so I tried to take this claim jumpers mission. Like I said, I'm going to leave in mistakes, because this was one. I think probably going over it again, I would just have switched server maybe at Everest Harbour. But instead what happened to me anyway was I ran into my first server error. So, this is Star Citizen. It is an alpha game, probably pre-alpha by a lot of people's standards. And so within the first half hour of logging in on a brand new account, I'm claiming my ship at Everest Harbour because the server crashed while I was in the middle of a mission. So, if you're not really willing to get into a game in this state, if this sort of thing is going to annoy you, because this crash cost me very little, but if that's likely to annoy you in terms of bigger crashes, then probably wait and see on Star Citizen. It's difficult. It's a game I struggle to recommend highly to a lot of my friends. Sort of, it's one of those things: either you're into it or you're not into it. And all I can really say to people is really take advantage of those free flies, because you can just try for free, like create an account. You'll get a notification whenever there's a free fly. There's probably going to be a few of them a year. You'll be able to get in, you'll have some ships to play with, you'll be able to see whether it sparks some joy. And if it does, then by all means, sort of grab yourself a starter pack and have a go. If you end up playing it for hours and hours and hours like I do, and it's money you want to put into funding the game, then you can look at some of the more expensive ships maybe. So at this point, sort of 43 minutes in, I've completed a couple of halt illegal surveillance missions. They're a sort of mercenary mission where I took out a few satellites. I made myself 40,000. I forgot to put my landing gear down when I came to land. And I'm finishing up this session at Herel 2, one of the refinery decks. So this is specifically because at the refineries, it's possible to rent ships. You can rent ships all across the verse from different terminals, but the ones that I want are available at this refinery. So I'm going to rent a Drake Cutlass Black and a Rock. But I'm about to realise mistake number 2, or is it 3 we're on now? I might have made enough money to rent the Cutlass and the Rock, but I forgot to make enough money to buy some rather important armour. So where we're going is going to be very hot. So I'm going to need this Pembroke armour, and I don't have quite enough money in my account after I've rented those 2 vehicles. But no worries, I'm just going to take this slightly beefier ship out, and I'm just going to do one more of those whole illegal surveillance missions, get another 20k in the bank, which I can use to purchase my armour. So, like I said, I'm going to leave the times I make mistakes in, because sort of it's going to paint a more realistic picture, just like leaving in the times that you crash, etc. So while I'm just finishing that up, I guess I can just mention the whole idea of ship rentals. So you have your ships that you buy for cash. They're always there on your account. You can then go and buy sort of a large number of the ships are available to buy for credits in game. So earn some currency, buy these ships from a couple of the shops. You can see one of my other videos to see all the ships which are in at the moment. But you can also rent these vehicles for a 24-hour period at a time for a fraction of the cost of them in sort of either in-game currency or indeed for dollar value. So, you know, we're an hour into Star Citizen. I'm buying my armor, and I've got access to 2 ships which combined pledge value would cost me sort of $165, $170. So I'm hoping that in itself sort of says something about the accessibility of the game. You know, the fact that you can rent these more advanced ships for fairly small amounts of cash just indicates that you can get into some more advanced gameplay within your first hours in the game. So for the next sort of stage of my operation, I've got the princely sum of 16,123 credits to my name. So I'm going to head to the moon Aberdeen, which is around Hurston, where I'm going to be using my rock, which is a small buggy that mines gems to do some mining to make some additional cash, and hopefully show how sort of, even though I paid out the best part of 50,000 credits to get set up to do this, I'm hopefully going to show that sort of within that rental period you can more than compensate yourself for the expense of the rentals. So the reason you want the Cutlass and the Rock is you drive the Cutlass into the Rock, and then you have a transport to fly it around the surface much more conveniently. I'm taking a bit of care. I'm sort of gone out into space and back down to the moon. There is always a danger. This is one of the most at-risk activities you can do in terms of risking pirates. So there are people who will scout, particularly around those mining stations where you go to pick up your vehicle, and they'll look for you. So So it's taken me a bit of extra time. I think I might have stopped to do some laundry as well, but I've gone out into space back down to the planet just to be safe, be in the middle of nowhere when I'm doing my mining. Uh, if you want any sort of really in-depth guide to how to rock mine, we'll do some bounty hunting later, some space mining later. If you want any sort of in-depth guides on this, then yeah, please take a look at getting started in Star Citizen, because that sort of goes in to more granular detail on how we do each of these things. This is more just, if someone's weighing up whether they have the time to enjoy Star Citizen or not. I'm just hoping to show a realistic picture of how long it might take you. So the rock itself will carry about 800 pieces of this gem hadonite. My recommendations for really sort of trying to min-max this a bit. There are 3 types of gem: Dolvine, Aphorite, Hadonite. Only stop for Hadonite. It's worth so much more than all the others. And also, if you're looking to really pick up speed, as painful as it might be, I tend to ignore clusters of 1 and 2 rocks that I find. It's simply not worth the time to stop, get the cutlass down, get the rock out, if you're not sort of picking up at least 3 nodes of the gems. Each one of these gems will sort of fill you by about 5% of the rock's capacity, and a full rock will sell for about 200 and a bit thousand. So yeah, a full rock of hadonite is worth it. We just need to look at the ways to fill it as quickly as possible. Here I am though, breaking my own rules, stopping for 2 gems. So even at 9 times speed, this is still going to be quite a while. So in the interest of keeping it to a manageable length for a video, I am just going to go cut forward in time from time to time. But I'm going to keep the clock running there to keep myself honest, and show you guys how long this realistically should take. So hop forward, and we're now 3¼ hours into our run. So I've used a little trick here to create a box for myself in the back of the cutlass. So I've already got sort of nearly a full rock's worth of hadonite, and I've just scooped sort of a last bit. I found a really good patch, and I was worried it wouldn't all fit into the rock, so I decided to grab that as well. But now I'm going to head myself back to one of the HGMS stations, the mining outposts, so that we can sell up some of this hadonite and hopefully have a bit of a shinier bank account than we started with. So we'll just slow this down a little bit. We're going to sell the hadonite from both the rock and from the cutlass. And there we have just over 326k. So more than making up for our rental costs in what was a couple of hours, so 2.5 hours nearly. Definitely deserves a drink of water. Got to keep yourself hydrated when you're out on a desert world. Just make sure you pop your helmet back on before you go out into the wastes. So one of the reasons that I just made sure that I sort of ended one session where I'd got enough money to rent my ships, and then I started a new one sort of the following morning, was to make sure that this rental period I could maximize. You don't necessarily want to rent something last thing at night, because sort of if you then go to sleep, you might waste quite a bit of your rental period. So fast forward, and we're now at 10.5 hours into this run, and I am coming into HGMS Anderson, one of these mining outposts, to hopefully sell off my last bit of hadonite, to get myself enough to move up in the world to become the owner of a shiny new, more advanced spaceship. So there we are, officially becoming millionaires. The Arrow itself is going to cost 972,300 credits, but it's also worth knowing sort of what parts we're going to include. So I recommend you hit up erkul.games. I'll include a link in the description. But this basically lets you plan what parts you might want to add to your ship. And you can sort of change up all the different parts of guns, shields, by just clicking on them there, and you'll see all the available ones which will fit those slots. So I've done myself a nice build, which is going to be good enough to do an awful lot of bounty hunting. You can also click non-stock items to cart, and then the cart will tell you how much all those parts are going to cost, and where you might buy them. You can sort of look for different shops. So we have to allow that extra sort of nearly 81,000 credits to get all of our parts. So also just to provide this realistic view of what we're doing, I'm including on the timer so all the time it takes me to get round all these different shops to buy these parts. So just had to stop at Lawville for one gun, but it's the only place which sells them. So unfortunately, I've got a couple of tram rides to add into the total time, and then we're just going to be flying around to various stations to Area 18 on our corp to go and buy the ship. And it just helps if you plan ahead, because you can save yourself an awful lot of time in terms of traveling around if you pre-plan some of these shopping trips. So you don't want to be going from one end of the verse only to realise that the other part that you needed was over back where you started. So usually my recommendation is that the first thing that I would upgrade would be the QT drive, because that would enable you to get round to buy your other parts quicker. But since we only have our starter ship, sort of originally, I was very keen to just make sure that I had enough time left on my Cutlass rental to drive round and pick up all the parts in the Cutlass, as opposed to doing it in my Mustang. As a general rule, all medium ships like the Cutlass will travel faster than the small ships, particularly like the Aurora and the Mustang, which are sort of very much starter ships, have starter parts and aren't particularly speedy. So next we're heading to ArcCorp to actually buy the Arrow. And I'm planning this route to go sort of from Hurston to ArcCorp and then over to the Crusader system, where the remainder of our parts are, because Crusader's where I want to end up. So as a next phase, we're going to do some bounty hunting with our new fighter. So I wanted to get away from rock mining as quickly as possible, really. Sort of there are just some risks to it. I mean, you're rolling around that surface with sort of all that hadonite in your hold. Until you sell it, it's very much at risk, either from pirates or from server issues. So if you get one of those 30k server crashes while you're out mining, hands up, sorry, I didn't mention it before, but sort of in the part that I cut out, I did have one 30k crash, which cost me about 150,000 worth of hadonite. So this run could have been like a decent sort of hour and a half, 2 hours quicker if I hadn't crashed like that. So the advantage, particularly in the beginning, to bounty hunting is that you're not at risk as much. So when we move on to that, you'll see that it goes mission by mission by mission. And if you're just doing missions, then the biggest risk in terms of a server issue is that you lose that one mission. When you're out mining in the rock, the risk is that you lose everything you've mined up until that point. So in terms of the ships that we were looking at in the beginning. The Arrow at just under 1 million credits was our cheapest option. So this will allow us to sort of make the rest of our money through ships that we own. We won't have those expenses of rentals, and it's sort of a more achievable target for something like rock mining, which takes quite a long time. I wouldn't necessarily personally want to push straight on towards the prospector, which would get you into a higher tier of mining, but because it costs 2 million credits. And realistically, to make full use of it, we'd want that other ship, the Freelancer Max, which will be another 2 million. So, as we can see, it's taken sort of the best part of 11 and a half hours, 12 hours to get to the point we are. So, I really wouldn't want to push that out any longer. I feel that we can make a lot more money bounty hunting than we can rock mining, particularly, like I say, with our own ship where we've been able to customize the loadout. Get the parts that I personally like for making short work of bounty targets, and hopefully having that ship in our hangar now will make getting those next two a lot easier. So we've just picked up the power plant we needed from Crew L1, and it's last stop to make now, just heading over to Port Olisar at Crusader, where we can pick up the final parts we need for the Arrow, and it's a really good base to start our bounty hunting from when we come back in the next episode. So if we land here and jump out, farewell to our Cutlass Black. You're a very trusty workhorse, but hopefully we're on to bigger and better things. So here I've just bought the final couple of parts, last couple of guns. I can go to my loadout manager, and because this is a ship that I own, it's possible to sort of change all those parts and upgrade them. And I got a bit of cash left over, so my alt character, Redshirt Steve, I think he deserves some cooler looking gear. So like I said, this isn't going to be just a 100% min-max type run. I'm going to allow for a few cosmetic purchases as well. Can't have him looking like trash after all. So that was 11 hours, 48 minutes and 44 seconds. And while that was quite a bit of grind, that was obviously going from the very beginning part. So as you'll find in pretty much all the MMO type games, you know, that first bit of gold that you manage to get is always the hardest. And so hopefully, as we'll see as we continue this series, once you get the hang of things, once you get the right tools for the right jobs, and you can access some of the better paying pursuits out there, then this will become a lot quicker, a lot more manageable. But I just wanted to see how possible it is from the start. And also, to be completely honest, if you're not into grinding, then maybe this approach certainly isn't for you. I know that Star Citizen gets a pretty bad rep in terms of, you know, it's pay to win, and I can see that. I can see how it would negatively affect some people. Some people have a lot of time to grind in games. Other people don't. Other people have very demanding jobs, or they have families and they just love playing games with their mates at the weekend. So the way I see it, in an MMO, there's always going to be somebody who's got a bigger, better thing than you. That will happen if games have no pay-to-win element, because some people have an awful lot more time. And it will happen in games like Star Citizen, where you can buy yourself an advantage, because some people have an awful lot of money available to throw at these things, and they'll be starting out with massive capital ships and stuff. Personally, it doesn't bother me too much, and the reason why is just because I really like hanging out in this universe. I really like doing things with my friends, sort of both new and old, and sort of it's just a cool, immersive world that I like saving up for and buying the spaceships and checking them out and seeing if we can do new things. So um, if that's not for you, then different smokes for different folks. It's not everything is meant to be for everybody. But I hope that this was at least a decent sort of guide to how long you can expect to have to grind if you just buy that starter package and get there through graft as opposed to through cash. So hopefully that was useful for you. And please feel free to get in touch in the comments or join the Discord. And if this is interesting for you, then feel free to hit that subscribe button to keep up with the next episodes which are going to come out in this series. So with all that said, thanks very much for watching. I look forward to seeing you out there.